Dear Bryce, this is my heartfelt show of gratitude for all the long, hard years you put into working with me. We made some serious gains, taking me from a little wee runt totaling 580 to a monster at a 742 kilogram total. But in all seriousness, one of the best things I ever did for my development as a coach and a lifter was hire a coach. This is something that we push onto all junior lifters or all new PTs that are looking to get in the fitness industry. Go and hire the people that you want to become. I started watching Calgary Barbell videos 5 or 6 years ago, and I saw this jacked, strong, tattooed monster that I wanted to be like. And so I messaged him and I hired him as a coach. I worked with Bryce for 4.5 years, and today I'm going to take you through some of the biggest lessons that I learned that shaped me into the coach and lifter I am today. The first lesson that I learned was the reactive approach to training. Now, obviously, Bryce Krawczyk has been coached by Mike Teixeira for a very long time, and Mike T being the monster of the reactive approach to training. And this was something that Bryce taught me almost instantly. Coming into the fitness industry or into strength training, into powerlifting, you see a lot of templated programs, a lot of linear programs where things are progressing from week to week to week. Bryce was the first person that showed me we can have an approach that is more suited to the individual and actually taking the individual's response to training and then tailoring future programs to match that individual's response. The crux of this lesson was if something's working, there's no need to change it. Keep following that specific thing that seems to be working. If something doesn't seem to be working, change it. Try something different and see if you can get a better result. The main message of this lesson was that I learned that each athlete is going to present a little bit differently, and that we shouldn't just try and box everyone into the same program or the same way that we've done it with other clients. Everyone is going to be a little bit different, and we should, as the coach, look at that and then tweak future programs. And to quote something that Bryce and I spoke about one time on a Zoom call, follow the athlete's response. And that is one of the biggest lessons I've taken away from working with Bryce, is to follow the athlete's response. And this is something, now that I'm doing my own programming, I'm using this same lesson for my future programs. So the second thing that I learned working with Bryce was the STOIC powerlifter. And this is more so about mindset rather than it is about programming or anything like that. Bryce taught me what the STOIC powerlifter was. If you're not sure what Stoicism is, or what it means to be a Stoic, it's a school of thought in philosophy that we can't actually control a lot of things. We can only control our actions, perceptions, and our reactions to certain things. And so to put this in the context of powerlifting, something early on that I was dealing with was if I hit a weight, a specific weight that I wanted to hit that day, and it didn't move that well, I could get quite emotional about it, and it could ruin my day where I just feel shit about myself and my performance. Something that I learned along the way was to remove myself from that. I can't actually control how the weight moves in terms of my strength adaptation. I can only control my approach to the bar and how I execute the specific lift. So if we're doing a deadlift, I can't actually control if 280 kilos is going to move well that day. I can just control my mindset and how I go into the bar. Once I've performed that lift, however it moves, I have no control over that. And this was a really freeing idea and something that really shaped me as a lifter that I've now been able to pass on to my current clients. And another big lesson that I learned working with Bryce was you can't force adaptation, you can only facilitate it. And this was a massive lesson that changed my whole perception of what training was. Again, coming into the industry, we're led to believe that we as coaches or as athletes can manipulate certain variables to get a very specific outcome. That is not the case. We don't actually control our body and how our body is going to react to training. So some days are going to be great, some days are going to be bad. We can't actually manipulate that. We can only facilitate adaptation in a favorable manner by laying out a good program, working with your coach, giving your coach feedback so that we can write the best programs for that individual. We don't actually know how the athlete is going to respond later down the track. We can make predictions, but it's not always going to be correct. So 3 little sub-points of this idea that you can't force adaptation is 1, the most important thing when it comes to getting stronger and building muscle is just to be consistent over time. You're gonna have good days, you're gonna have bad days. Just rocking up 3 days, 4 days, 5 days a week and doing that for months and years is what is important. As an athlete, make sure you just hit your RPEs. Whatever is there on the day, be as objective and as accurate as you possibly can. Hit your RPEs, take the score and move on. And finally, just work hard. Make sure you are pushing yourself and actually training hard. To sum this point up as a whole, to quote Bryce himself, there are no sexy answers. You come into powerlifting or strength sports with the idea that you can manipulate things to get everything. Should I eat this much protein? Should I have this many carbs? Should I sleep for this long? Should I train at this time? Should I do 3 exercises on a day? Should I do 5 exercises on a day? Ultimately, there are no sexy answers. When it comes to improving in strength and powerlifting, it's hit your RPEs, consistency over time, and work hard. And this leads me into the last point, which was keep variables constant. This was one of the biggest things that I learned from Bryce when we first started, and I touched on this before. There was all these programs that I was looking at that had week 1 hitting a specific rep range and then increasing the reps the next week and then increasing the reps the next week and then increasing the reps the next week. And when you're going for this more reactive approach of training and seeing how an athlete responds, we actually need to keep the program constant. So one of the biggest things Bryce taught me was to develop the microcycle, keep sets, RPEs, and reps constant, and follow that for as many weeks as you can. This way, by keeping everything constant, we can actually see how the human is responding or adapting to the program, and then this gives us future data for later blocks. So we can actually see if something is working well, and then we can try and replicate and use those things later on. If you are a young coach or a young lifter, don't be afraid to keep things consistent. You don't need to change variables every single week. Keep things the same and make the weight the variable that moves, so that way you can actually see if you are getting better using the specific layout of programming that you're on. All in all, without you, Bryce, I would not be here as the coach and the lifter I am today. Hiring you was one of the best decisions I ever made. Go out there and hire a coach. Learn off the people that you want to become. It is the best decision you will ever make, and you will see so much improvement. P.S. Bryce, I love you and you'll always be in my heart.